On Isla Nublar, a group of men gather with weapons in hand, preparing to load a mysterious animal into a cage.
And push!
When one of the gatekeepers tries to open the cage, the animal makes a sudden movement, causing the man to lose his balance and fall. As the gatekeeper tries to recover, he is snatched by the animal. The other men rush to stop it, and one of them tries to save the gatekeeper, but the animal is too powerful and drags the man into the cage. A few days later, Donald Gennaro, a lawyer representing Hammond's investors, arrives at a mining site called Mano de Dios Amber Mine. He asks for Hammond, explaining that Hammond is facing a $20 million lawsuit filed by the family of the worker who died. Juanito Restaño informs him that Hammond is currently with his daughter, who is going through a divorce. Donald says he understands but insists it's crucial for Hammond to be present. He explains that the recent accident has made the investors nervous about the park's opening, which is why he's been sent to inspect everything. As they talk, one of the miners approaches and calls Juanito inside. They head into the mine where Juanito is handed something discovered in the mine, a mosquito preserved in amber, lost in time. The scene shifts to a team of paleontologists gently brushing soil from a perfectly preserved raptor skeleton. The team is led by Dr. Alan Grant and Dr. Ellie Sattler. After a radiation scan is shot into the ground, Dr. Alan explains the image on the monitor screen. He compares the raptor to birds, noting their many similarities. A boy in the crowd says it doesn't look scary, more like a 6-foot ostrich.
That doesn't look very scary. More like a 6-foot turkey.
Alan walks up to the boy and, with dry intensity, paints a terrifying picture of how a raptor hunts its prey, how it stalks, surrounds, and tears flesh with surgical precision. The boy goes pale.
Try to show a little respect.
Okay.
Moments later, a helicopter interrupts everything, kicking up dust and papers, nearly ruining the team's work. Alan storms off to confront the person behind the commotion but is instead greeted by none other than John Hammond, CEO and founder of InGen. Hammond comments on how well Alan and Ellie have used his funding. He explains that he owns an island off the coast of Costa Rica and is building a park that will blow the minds of both kids and adults. He tells them his investors are demanding outside opinions, which is where Alan and Ellie come in. Hammond wants them to visit his park, inspect it, and sign off on it as a safe endeavor so he can resume work on schedule. To sweeten the deal, Hammond offers to fully fund their paleontology project for the next 3 years. With an offer that generous, the trio comes to a mutual agreement. In San Jose, Costa Rica, a man arrives at a local restaurant and walks to a table. He is Louis Dodgson, an employee of InGen's corporate rival. He meets Dennis Nedry, a computer programmer working on Hammond's Island. Louis wants Nedry to steal some viable embryos from Jurassic Park and gives him a $50,000 advance, promising more payment once the job is done. Nedry happily accepts and promises he'll get it done. The scene shifts to Dr. Allen and Dr. Ellie inside a helicopter on their way to the island. They're accompanied by Mr. Hammond, Donald Gennaro, and a man named Dr. Ian Malcolm, a mathematician and chaos theorist. When they land, they begin a ride through the island. Donald asks if the full 50 miles of perimeter fencing is in place. Hammond assures him everything is fine and urges him to relax. Donald reminds Hammond that the investors are taking inspections and safety very seriously, and if they're not satisfied, they will shut him down within 48 hours. Hammond smirks and replies that in 48 hours, he'll be looking forward to Donald's apology. They make a quick stop. As Ellie studies a map, Alan looks to the side, and his jaw drops. Oblivious, Ellie keeps talking until Alan grabs her attention. Her jaw drops too. Standing before them are dinosaurs. The two jump out of the car to get a closer look, stunned by the impossible sight. When Hammond reveals he has a T-Rex, Alan nearly faints from excitement. They ask how this is possible.
I'll show you.
They arrive at the park's headquarters, and Hammond takes them inside. He turns on a projector, which explains in detail how the dinosaurs were created. Back in prehistoric times, mosquitoes fed on dinosaurs, sucking their blood. Afterward, these mosquitoes flew to trees, where they got trapped in sap. Over time, the sap hardened into amber, preserving the insects. Scientists from InGen discovered these ancient mosquitoes and extracted the blood inside, which contains dinosaur DNA. They then used frog DNA to complete the genetic code and bring the dinosaurs back to life. After the presentation, they visit the lab and witness a baby dinosaur hatching from an egg. Malcolm asks what kind of dinosaurs are bred on the island. John Arnold, Jurassic Park's chief engineer, explains that all the dinosaurs are female. He says they removed the chromosomes responsible for male offspring, making it easier to control the population. Malcolm warns that life cannot be truly controlled.
There's one thing the history of evolution has taught us. Life breaks free, it expands to new territories. Life will not be contained.
Alan picks up the newborn dino and asks what species it is. Arnold replies, Velociraptor. Alan is shocked to learn they've bred raptors. Outside, Alan and the others watch as a cow is lowered into a large fenced cage. Moments later, they hear tearing and snarling from within. As they observe, Robert Muldoon walks in and introduces himself. Alan asks about the raptors, how many were bred, how intelligent they are, and how fast they can run. Robert explains that they initially had about 6, but one raptor asserted dominance and killed the others, leaving only one alive. He adds that the raptors are highly intelligent, they never attack the same place twice and are always testing the fences for weaknesses. At lunch, Malcolm continues expressing his concerns. He argues that bringing back extinct animals is dangerous, they went extinct for a reason, and nature had its own balance. Hammond counters, saying that scientists must act in the name of discovery. Later, Hammond's grandchildren, Tim and Lex Murphy, arrive on the island. They reunite with their grandfather before heading outside. Waiting for them are 2 electric cars, which run along an iron track that will guide them through the park. Everyone climbs into the vehicles, and Hammond heads back inside to the control room. Inside the control room, Robert informs Hammond about an upcoming storm. Ray, the worker in charge of the tour, starts the tour program, and the electric cars begin to move. As they ride through the park, a voiceover introduces one of the first dinosaurs in the park, the Dilophosaurus. The voiceover describes it as beautiful but deadly, spitting venom at its prey, causing blindness and paralysis, allowing the carnivore to eat at its leisure. The guests look out at the cage to see the dinosaur, but nothing appears. Back in the control room, Ray says the vehicle headlights aren't responding and suspects a bug in the system. Hammond talks to Nedry and asks him to work on fixing the bugs, but Nedry complains about how much work he does for such little pay. You know anybody who can network 8 machines and debug 2 million lines of code on my salary? Hammond replies that Nedry's financial problems are not his concern and advises him to spend more cautiously. He urges Nedry to fix the bugs, and Nedry responds that he'll do it when the cars are back from the tour. Back on the tour, Dr. Allen and the others approach the Tyrannosaur paddock, but again, no dinosaur appears. Ray tries to bait the Rex by releasing a goat, but Allen remarks that the T-Rex doesn't want to be fed, he wants to hunt. Hammond begins to feel anxious and disappointed, the tour isn't going the way he imagined. As the car continues its ride, Ellie asks Malcolm to explain the concept of chaos theory. Malcolm proceeds to demonstrate it, and while he does, Allen looks out from the car, hears a noise, and walks out. Ellie joins him, and soon after, the whole group leaves the vehicle and walks into the jungle. Overwhelmed, Hammond tells Ray to stop the tour, noting that it's a disaster. The crew walks up to a Triceratops lying on the ground, breathing heavily. It turns out the dinosaur is sick. Ellie deduces that it must have eaten something toxic. As she begins treating the dinosaur, the storm gets closer. While the others decide to return to the cars, Ellie chooses to stay back with Dr. Harding in care for the sick animal. In the control room, Nedry shuts down the park's security systems, including several electric fences surrounding specific dinosaur paddocks. He makes a call to one of the captains at the dock. The captain says he only has 20 minutes left and will leave if Nedry doesn't deliver the viable embryos in time. After the call, Nedry makes an excuse, nervously saying he's going to the soda machine.
Anybody want a soda or something? I'm going up to the machine. I thought maybe, I'd get somebody sweets, and I think I'm going to get something salty. I thought maybe some.
He also mentions that he has debugged the phones and fixed other issues. He warns that a few systems will go offline as the system starts compiling and says it will take about 18 to 20 minutes, then quickly exits. He heads to a secure lab, and when the camera goes offline, he sneaks in and steals several embryos. Meanwhile, Ray notices all the security systems are down. When he brings it up, Hammond reminds him of what Nedry said about the systems temporarily shutting down. Back to the crew in the cars, Alan makes small talk with Malcolm and asks if he has kids. Malcolm says he does and that he loves all 3 of them. As they talk, the automatic tour cars come to a stop in the middle of the road. Meanwhile, Nedry gets into a vehicle and drives off to deliver the embryos to the biosin agent waiting at the dock. In the control room, Ray, Hammond, and Robert try to bring the security systems back online, fearing the raptor fences might be down as well. As Nedry continues driving, the storm causes him to lose control and crash into a road sign. Disoriented, he misses the road and becomes lost in the jungle. He then encounters a Dilophosaurus, which blinds him with venom and kills him. Back with the crew, Alan goes to check on the other car and later reports back to Malcolm, telling him that Donald's car radio isn't working either. As they all wait for the power to return, Tim hears a trembling sound. Donald hears it too. They look up and see the giant T-Rex swallowing the goat from earlier, then turning its attention to the kids and Donald. Terrified, Donald panics and runs out of the car to hide in a nearby toilet. The kids stare in fear and disbelief at how Donald abandoned them. Alan and Malcolm watch as Donald flees, trying to make sense of the situation. Then, the wires on the electric fence snap, and a dinosaur steps onto the road. Alan warns Malcolm to stay still, saying the T-Rex reacts based on movement. Meanwhile, the kids in the other car turn on a flashlight, which attracts the T-Rex's attention. It approaches their car and begins trying to get at them. Fortunately, Alan comes up with an idea. He picks up a glow stick and draws the dinosaur's attention. Malcolm does the same, diverting the T-Rex toward himself while Alan rushes to rescue the kids from the damaged car. The T-Rex crashes into the toilet, coming face to face with Donald, who becomes dinosaur food. Alan manages to pull Lex from the car, but Tim is stuck. When Lex sees the T-Rex, she screams. Alan covers her mouth, warning her not to move because the dinosaur can track movement. The T-Rex shakes the car violently, nearly throwing Alan and Lex off the fence. They manage to grab hold of the wires and swing away just as the car crashes through the fence and into the trees, with Tim still inside. Back in the control room, Ray says all security is down and there's nothing more he can do. He tells Hammond they need Nedry, unaware that Nedry is already dinosaur food. Hammond calmly asks Robert to take a gas-powered jeep to find his grandkids, and Ellie insists on coming too. Alan and Lex eventually climb down the fence. Alan calls out to Tim but hears no response. He tells Lex to wait for him while he climbs the tree to find her brother. Lex is afraid Alan will leave just like Donald did, but Alan promises he won't. Alan climbs the tree and calls out to Tim. Tim is shaken from the event that just took place, but Alan manages to calm him. As they make their way out of the car, the branches begin to break and the car comes crashing down toward them. They manage to get out of the way just in time, and the car falls past them. Ellie and Richard arrive at the scene, looking for Alan and the others, but they only find Malcolm. Ellie discovers the other car, but Alan and the kids have already left. Malcolm hears the impact tremors of the T-Rex and signals the duo to run. They jump into the car, and the T-Rex chases after them as Richard floors the gas, allowing them to escape. Alan and the kids eventually reach a safe spot and climb into the trees to spend the night. They watch the Brachiosaurus, and Alan notes that they're singing. Lex gets scared the Brachiosaurus might eat them, but Alan explains they're not dangerous, they're herbivores. Eventually, they settle into sleep, and Tim lightens the mood by making dinosaur jokes.
What do you call a blind dinosaur?
I don't know. What do you call a blind dinosaur?
Do you think he saw us?
Back at headquarters, Hammond sits alone, eating a bowl of ice cream. Ellie walks in to keep him company. Hammond says he believes his grandkids are in safe hands. He begins reminiscing about his first park, saying it was fun but nothing like this one. Jurassic Park was meant to show people something real, not an illusion, something they could touch and feel.
I mean, not devoid of merit.
He insists that next time it will be perfect and that he'll have control. Ellie tearfully responds, saying that trying to have control is the illusion. She confesses that she was overwhelmed by the power of the island, and now that power is out of control. The only thing that matters now is Alan, Tim, and Lex. The next morning, Alan and the kids wake up to a Brachiosaurus eating leaves next to them. Lex gets scared, but Alan calms her. He says the Brachiosaurus is more like a giant cow and that she can pet it. When she tries, the dinosaur sneezes on her.
God bless you!
As the trio walks through the jungle, Alan comes across some hatched eggs on the ground and realizes that the dinosaurs are breeding on their own. Tim says their grandpa told them all the dinosaurs were supposed to be female. Alan recalls the video from their tour and explains that some West African frogs have the ability to change sex in single-sex environments. Since frog DNA was used to fill in the dinosaur genetic code, there's a chance some of those frogs were used.
Malcolm was right. Life found a way.
In the control room, Hammond decides the only way to regain control and undo Nedry's sabotage is to shut down the entire system. Ray protests, calling it madness and a huge risk, but Hammond insists it's the best option. He believes that once they reboot, everything will return to normal. Ray still thinks it's a bad idea and warns there's a chance it won't work, but Hammond is determined. They shut down the system, and everything goes dark. When Ray turns it back on, the computers come online, but the room stays dark. Ray says the shutdown might have tripped the circuit breakers and decides to go check it out. Hammond instructs the rest of the crew to head to the emergency bunker and wait until Ray returns. A while later, Ellie grows concerned that Ray hasn't returned and decides to look for him. Richard offers to join her and brings a shotgun. Outside, they discover that the raptor fence has been chewed through, the raptors are loose. Ellie quickly assesses the situation and suggests they run to the shed. Richard warns it's dangerous, noting that they're being hunted. He tells Ellie to run for the shed while he covers her. She makes it and calls out for Ray. Inside, she grabs a walkie-talkie and stays in contact with Hammond, who guides her using the building's blueprint. Meanwhile, Alan and the kids reach an electric fence marked with a 1000 volts sign. Alan tests it and sees the power is still off. He pretends to be electrocuted, scaring the kids. Suddenly, they hear a dinosaur roar and begin climbing the fence. At the same time, Ellie makes her way to the high-voltage control room. Hammond instructs her on how to turn the power back on. She pushes the green button, and the lights come on. Alan climbs down, but Tim is still on the fence. Hammond explains to Ellie that the red button activates the individual park systems and tells her to switch them on. Alan and Lex yell at Tim to jump. As he counts down from 3, the power comes online, and a jolt of electricity throws Tim off the fence. Ellie celebrates the power restoration, but her relief is short-lived when one of the raptors tries to bury her in its jaws. She manages to escape and runs out of the shed. Richard spots one of the raptors and prepares to shoot, but a second raptor appears beside him. He realizes too late, it was a trap. As he tries to defend himself, the raptor kills him. Meanwhile, Alan gives Tim CPR, and he eventually regains consciousness. They head back to headquarters but find no one there. Alan leaves the kids in the dining room and heads outside to look for Ellie and the others. Just as the kids begin to eat and breathe a sigh of relief, a velociraptor enters. They run into the kitchen to hide, but the intelligent raptor opens the door. It calls for another raptor, and they begin hunting the kids. Lex and Tim manage to escape and reunite with Alan and Ellie. They race to the control room, with the raptor in pursuit. As it tries to break in, Alan and Ellie hold the door while Lex hacks into the system. She eventually restores communications and brings the entire system back online. They celebrate, and Alan calls Hammond to deliver the good news, and to confirm his grandchildren are safe. He tells Hammond to call the helicopter. Before the call can finish, the raptors break into the control room. The crew escapes through the vents and crawls back into the main hall, only to be cornered once again. Just as they're about to be eaten, the T-Rex bursts in and attacks the raptors, giving them a chance to escape. They flee outside and jump into a gas-powered jeep. Alan tells Hammond that he officially declines signing the park contract. Hammond agrees. They reach the helicopter and climb in. Hammond takes one final look at his park before Alan calls him inside. As they fly off, Ellie notices how close Alan has become to the kids. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more interesting movies like this. See you in the next one.